Now, our next speaker is an author, a pastor, and the founder of Winston Leadership Institute. Welcome, David Winston. Give him a hand.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for that warm reception. Can you join me in putting your hands together for Sharbria and Louis Shine? Come on, just put your hands together for putting this on, for putting this together. This is no small feat. This takes a lot of work, and I honor you all in that. Thank you so much for working so diligently to invest into you all. That's why you do it, to invest into you all, to invest into the community, to build the next generation of leaders and to give you encouragement and to give you hope, and that's a good thing. Well, as Sharbria said, my name is David Winston, and I am I could say, pastor by trade. I'm over at Living Word Christian Center in the Chicago area, and I serve under my father, Dr. Bill Winston. One or two of y'all might have heard of him before. And but I'm so excited because I love to build leaders. I did establish something, I created something a couple years ago during the pandemic called the Winston Leadership Institute, because God really put it in my heart to be able to build the next generation of leaders, and I love doing that. So I'm gonna take the next, maybe 45 minutes or so to encourage you. Let me set my timer. To encourage you in what I really believe is really important, really vital to help you understand. First of all, let me take a little bit of the temperature in the room. How many of you all are business owners? How many of you all are business owners? Just wave at me. I know a lot of you all might be sitting around. You're business owners. Thank you all so much for coming out and supporting, and you got your individual booths. That's great. I love it. How many of you all, you may not be business owners, but maybe you're a pastor or you're an organizational leader. Pastor or organizational leader. Okay, see a couple of y'all. And then how many of you all would like to own your own business one day? Come on, we got some aspiring business owners. Okay, great. I like to take the temperature in the room. Okay, my last question is, do I have any golfers in the room? Anybody play golf? All right, I got a few hands. I am a terrible golfer. This is not a story about how I golf so well. I would one day like to learn. I've taken a couple golf lessons, but I am admittedly a terrible golfer. But I wanted to start off with a story because, the PGA and with social media and TV and everything, you can see golf all the time. They even have a golf channel. But years ago, there was a Saudi Arabia prince, and he was a big golf fan. He played golf, he liked watching golf, and he wanted to host a private tournament at his residence, at his palace. So he actually invited a well-known American golfer to fly over, to be with him, to take part in this golfing tournament, just this exposition. And so the golfer, he got the invitation, and he was thrilled, he was delighted. And he said, yeah, I'll come. So the Saudi Arabia prince, he sent his private jet over to pick him up. How would you like somebody to send their private jet to pick you up to go do what you love doing? That sounds good, right? And so he sent the jet, he went over to Saudi Arabia, and for the next several days, they enjoyed many rounds of golf, lots of laughs, gourmet meals. Oh, they had a great time. And so after the tournament was over, their time was over, it was time for the golfer to go back home. And so, he was sad because it had come to an end, but he knew it was time for it to end. And so the prince said, we would like to give you something as a token of our appreciation. Well, the golfer said, well, no, you've done more than enough. You've sent your private jet. You've given me first-class accommodations. I couldn't have asked for anything more. Just the experience itself was more than enough. But the prince, he insisted. He said, no, we want to give you a gift. Now, the golfer understood royal protocol. He didn't want to insult the royal family, so he said, okay, fine, I'll take a golf club. The quintessential gift for any golfer, right? And so he said, okay, golf club. So the prince responded, yeah, I can do that. So the golfer, he gets back in the private jet, going back home, and while he's on the plane, he's thinking about what kind of golf club would the prince give him. Would it be some kind of golf club with exotic handles, maybe ostrich on it? Would it be a golf club that is crusted with diamonds? Or maybe it's a 24 karat gold golf club. He knew that the prince liked to do things real big. So he imagined what kind of golf club it could possibly be. Well, he got back home and several weeks had passed, and he didn't hear from the prince. He didn't hear from any of the royal workers, the staff. He hadn't heard from anybody. He started to wonder, did the prince forget about me? Did he forget about the club? And he said, it's okay. I don't mind. He's done more than enough for me. He wasn't mad. He said, he's busy. That's okay if he forgot. But he was kind of down about it. And the next day, he heard a knock on his door. And he wasn't expecting anybody. He thought it was kind of strange, but he went to the door and he opened the door and he saw a well-dressed gentleman. And he was standing there and he said, "Are you Mr. Such and Such?" He said, "Yeah, that's me." And then he handed him an envelope. And he said, "What is this?" The man said, "Open it." He opened the envelope and it was the title deed to his 500-acre golf club estate. The man said, "I'm here to take you to your new golf club." See, the golfer, when he asked for a golf club, what do you think he was thinking? He was thinking about a driver, a 9-iron, a 4-iron. But when the prince heard golf club, he was thinking estate. He was thinking a clubhouse. He was thinking restaurant. He was thinking 18 holes, greens. He was thinking something totally different. Notice they said the same thing, but they had a different interpretation of what was being stated. The same phrase interpreted two different ways. And it reminds me of one of my favorite scriptures. Now unto him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly, more than we can ask or think, according to the power that works within us. I am here to challenge you today because what I find sometimes is sometimes we are shrinking God's big plans down to the small size where we can receive it. But maybe there's more that is in store for you. Maybe the dream that is for you, somebody might have said is too big, but maybe God is saying, no, that's too small. Think bigger. Think bigger. I'm here to encourage you today to think bigger. Whatever dream you have, it's not too big. And maybe you're hearing this and you're a business owner, maybe you're an aspiring business owner. And you might be thinking, I just want to get a good community local business, good neighborhood business. You might be thinking local, but God is thinking global. You might be thinking something that's small, but really God is thinking multinational, international enterprise. Have you ever heard the phrase, get outside of the box? Well, what does that mean to get outside of the box? Well, before we can talk about ROIs or business plans or demographics or market research and analysis, before we can talk about any of that, we have to talk about the most important thing that separates you from succeeding at a very high level. It's your thinking. Your thinking is the most important thing to any business endeavor that you have, or any other endeavor even outside of business. Your thinking will either be the accelerant or the limiter, according to how you think. I want to take the next 40 minutes to talk about getting outside of the box, stepping outside of the box. Look at your neighbor and say, step outside of the box. Look at your other neighbor, the good-looking one, say, step outside of the box. In order to see the highest level of potential inside of us actualized in the earth, we have to step outside of the box. So what is the box? In order to step outside of it, we have to define it, because we can't defeat what we can't define. So how do we get outside of that box? Oh, number one, the first side of the box, fear of failing. Fear of failing. One man says it like this, or the popular saying is like this. Fear of failing, or the word fear, is an acronym for false evidence appearing real. Fear tries to tell you a story about something that doesn't even exist. Fear tries to paralyze you to keep you away from achieving your dreams. achieving your destiny, achieving something that you have in your heart to do. You can't start anything or even scale anything if you're always being tormented by fear. If you're being punked, we could say, by fear. You know, I started in ministry, and like I said, you know, and following in my father's footsteps, but I didn't want to be a pastor. I didn't want to be a full-time minister or ministry leader. I didn't have any issues with it. I didn't see it as a negative thing. I just thought that my parents were doing a good enough job that God didn't need another person in the family doing it too. Makes sense, right? That's logical, so I try to use my mind. But that's not what God's plan was for me. And he spoke to my heart, called me into full-time ministry, and so I've been in full-time ministry since 2009. But let me tell you, I had to face fear because I was not an extroverted person. I was not a person who loved being on stage. Some people love performing on stage. Sharbria just told me she loves musical theater. My wife loves musical theater. She loves to sing. They love being on stage. That was not me. I was the camera guy behind the camera. That was my comfort zone. Come on, shout out to my photographers and cameramen. That was my comfort zone. Being behind the screen, behind the scenes. I could do that all day. But when I had to step on stage and get in front of people, I said, God, do you know what you're doing? Because I don't really feel like I'm real qualified for this. How many times do we try to disqualify ourselves because we feel like we don't have what it takes to achieve our dream? As if God gave the wrong dream to the wrong person. But God is not confused on your address. He's assigned the right person, the right dream, for the right time, in the right community. It's actually a part of his plan. God chose the right person. And the more I would meditate on my fear of public speaking or even leading people, the harder it would be to do what I was being asked to do. But the more I pushed that aside and faced that fear, the easier it became, the stronger I became. As a matter of fact, I have some other ministry responsibilities, and I have some other things that I do in our ministry. And so part of my executive leadership in ministry is I manage teams. So I have about 40 employees that report to me at this point, but at that point it was maybe more like 15. But some of those employees were old enough to be my grandmother. I started leading, and I think I was 24 when I took over some of those roles. So I remember going to the first several meetings thinking this, I tell you no lie. How do I get these people who are old enough to be my grandparents to listen to me? What do I have to present of value that tells them that you should follow my leadership beyond my last name? Because it wasn't just enough to have them follow me as a leader because the organizational chart said so. I wanted them to want to follow me. I wanted to be a good leader. But in order to do that, I had to face my fear. Say, face your fear. And the fear of failing is the number one thing that keeps people from succeeding. The famous inventor, Thomas Edison, when he was asked about all of the different failures that he had, he said, I have not failed 10,000 times. I simply found 10,000 times that will not work. Because there is no failure. There's just learning. There's no failure. We're just learning, right? Now, some of you all might challenge that. You might say, look, I had a business that failed. It was expensive. It cost me a lot. But sometimes wisdom is expensive. But when you keep applying yourself, you'll take that wisdom that was expensive and you'll apply it to the next season, the next thing, the next strategy, the next business, the next endeavor. And that one has a better chance of succeeding, especially when God is in it. Now, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, approximately 20% of new businesses fail in the first 2 years. 45% of new businesses fail in the first 5 years. When you go to the first decade, 65% of businesses fail. And only 25% of new businesses make it to 15 years. So you might say, well, the odds might be stacked against me. But what I'm here to tell you is that if you don't try, The odds of you succeeding are 100 or not succeeding are 100%. Because what do they say? You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Fear of failing keeps many people locked out of their dreams. One of the most commonly spoken phrases in the Bible or references in the Bible is fear not. Fear not. Don't fear. Fear not. Why is that? I believe God in his infinite wisdom knew that us as humans and how we think, we may be inclined to go with how we feel sometimes according to natural situations and circumstances. And the same God who tells us to have faith also tells us to fear not, because faith and fear, they actually work in a similar way. They're both based on some conditions that don't currently exist. But we have to believe in a higher reality. I choose to believe in a higher reality. So that's why I choose to believe God, and that's, an occupation and a decision that I have made. But fear of failure is the greatest enemy of success. Fear of failure. Fear of failure. And I'm here to tell you, sometimes everything won't always be perfect before you start it. How many of you all have ever done something or tried to start something and it wasn't the perfect time, right? Maybe you didn't have all the finances together. Maybe you didn't have all the staff and people together, all the support that you need. Maybe it felt like it wasn't the right time or right season. I can imagine Lewis right now as he's, going over the schedule with his wife and they're saying, okay, it's coming up in November. And then he sees the weather report 5 days ago and says, oh, it's going to be real cold on Saturday. Why can't some of that heat that was there on Wednesday be here on Saturday? But if we look at the natural conditions, sometimes those will try to convince us that it's never a good time to start. Don't have this education, waiting on this. I'm here to tell you, stop waiting. Stop waiting. Stop waiting. The first side of the box is fear of failing. We're going to overcome that. Next side of the box, we have inferiority complex. Inferiority complex. What is this? Feeling lower in value or in status when compared to others. Feeling lower in value or status when compared to others. It's when your sense of significance is low. And this is one of the main things that was impressed on my heart when I was thinking about, what should I be talking about here today? How can I encourage you? Your sense of significance. So many things that we do in life are born out of our sense of significance, our sense of identity, who we are. My question to you today is, who are you? Not where did you come from, not what your last name is, not what Ancestry.com says. No, I'm talking about who are you? What do you represent? What do you do well? What service or product do you provide? Why do you do it? Who are you? A lot of life's important questions all revolve around our sense of significance. The betterment of humanity and the change in society that we want to see is often first an idea in someone's heart. What you do or what God has put inside of your heart is significant. That you've been born for a reason. There's no back door to earth. You cannot sneak into existence. No matter what conditions you were born into, family you were born into, or situation that resulted in your birth, you cannot sneak into earth. You are a calculated divine decision, and God held out on all of eternity until now to put you in this earth because the earth needs what you carry. Humanity needs what you carry. The business idea, the organizational idea, the ministry idea, whatever it is that you do, whatever your creative genius is, we need your brand of genius. All of you have genius inside of you. Every single one of you. I'm not talking about academic genius. I'm talking about whatever it is that is inside of you that you do well. And you might say, hey, I do something that's well, but it's common. Somebody else has this kind of product. Somebody else might sing, or somebody else has this kind of ministry or this kind of organization. But I'm here to tell you that when you do it, it's different. It's special because nobody else on this earth can do what you do like you do. And even though what you might be doing is common, you are uncommon. So you take something that's common and you make it uncommon when you put your handprint on it. And that goes for each and every one of us. Say, that's me. So, when I talk about this, I'm often tempted to think back about how man was created. And there's a scripture in the Bible that said that God created man in his image and his likeness. And then he said, let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over all the cattle and everything in the earth and everything over the earth. But notice that God gave us his image first. That inner image, our sense of significance, he gave that to us first. Before God said, let them have power, he said, let them have the right image. Let them see themselves the right way, the right sense of significance. So your ability to prosper is tied up in how accurately you can perceive your worth. Say, know your worth. Know your worth. That's really important. You have been hardwired to dominate the marketplace when your inner image is correctly calibrated. To dominate the marketplace. What is that? Dominion. Well, then he goes a few scriptures later and says, well, let them be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth and subdue it. Well, being fruitful first is being accountable to what God has put inside of you. Your gift, your skill, your talent. Are you being fruitful with that? Are you going further with that? Are you applying that? Your brilliance, your genius, and then multiplying that. Okay, now I'm doing even more with what I've applied myself to. And then it says, be fruitful, multiply, replenish. So now I'm actually helping others with what I'm supplying. And then it says subdue, or you can say keep competition down. You're doing it so well to such a high level that you are now dominating in your industry. That's what God's ultimate plan and purpose is for you. The dream that you have, the goals that you have. Ability is limited by mentality. Ability is limited by mentality. Have you ever known somebody who was extremely gifted at something, right? Maybe they're brilliant, or maybe they have academic excellence. Maybe they might have some kind of rare athletic ability, or maybe songwriting or musical genius. And they have some great high-level ability. I've known some, but yet it seems like they can never actualize the fullness of the potential of that thing that they have inside of them. Sometimes there's documentaries, right, on athletes who were great athletes in high school, right? Maybe great athletes in college, but just kind of kept hitting a lid. And I'm here to tell you that ability is always going to be capped by mentality. You can have the best ability on earth, but if the mentality doesn't rise higher, the ability will always be limited. John Maxwell, he does a lot of leadership training, and he has a book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, one of my favorite leadership books. And he says this, he says, the law of the lid is the first and most important law. The law of the lid says this, that my team, my ministry, my organization, my business will only rise as high as my capacity. It will only rise as high as my mentality. And in order for things to get better, my team to get better, my business to get better, more revenue, my money to get better, my mentality has to rise. My mentality has to rise. So get this. Your mind is designed to suppress ideas, intelligence, and creativity that goes beyond the boundary of your self-image. That's how we were designed. That if it goes beyond the boundary of a self-image, then the subconscious is designed to suppress it. I like something that my dad said one time. He said, it's hard for a person who feels inferior to create. We're talking about taking off the limitations. We're talking about stepping outside of the box. What's the number 3 thing, the third thing? Unrecognized resources. Unrecognized resources is the third part of this box. What is unrecognized resources? Solutions around you that have not been revealed to your natural senses or your consciousness. Solutions around you that have not been revealed to your natural senses or your consciousness. So, let me give you an example of somebody who I think you'll be able to quickly relate to. Y'all know her? Who is this? Michelle Haskins. How many of you all were here earlier today? And you saw her, right? Now, the amazing thing about her story, and I know she went over her story, so I won't go over it again, but the amazing thing about her story is she didn't have to get a degree from Harvard to be successful in this industry, right? She didn't have to wait around from funding from major venture capitalists to be successful in this industry. As a matter of fact, she didn't have to search far and wide to be able to even get the recipe. It was her grandma's recipe, right? It was right there in the house. Say this, what do you have in your house? It was her grandma's recipe, and does anybody remember what the recipe was? Honey, butter, cream. I said, why didn't I think of that? She over here making buku bucks. I see her syrups all the time in the grocery store, and she did honey butter cream. I could have thought of that. Honey butter cream? Really? But you know, that might be common, right? Honey's common, butter's common, cream is common. But what she did is she took a common recipe and met it with uncommon persistence. She called grocery stores. She called people all the time, every week. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calls, hundreds of no's, just to get one yes. When common things are met with uncommon levels of discipline and persistence, you get something special. And that makes the difference. It wasn't honey butter cream that made the difference. It was her persistence that made the difference. And what did she dare to do? She recognized the resource that she had. An old recipe from her grandma, honey butter cream, made her a multi-millionaire. I wonder what's in your house. I wonder what do you have right under your nose on your kitchen counter. Maybe it's not in the kitchen. Maybe it's in a shelf in the bedroom. Maybe it's something inside of you, something that's intrinsic. Maybe it's a passion or a gifting or a skill. You know, it's so awesome when I hear these stories, especially on social media. You know, people kind of grow to this level of influence and affluence, and they start talking about how they started. And I love sometimes how these side hustle stories like turn into major multi-million-dollar stories, you know, years later. And they say, I just started as a side hustle because I just like to organize. Now, I like to be organized. I do not like the operation of organization. Like, I don't like trying to do it, but I like to be organized. Some people love to organize. They do it so well that their friends and family ask them to come over. And they do it out of the goodness of their heart, right? How many of us have helped out a family member or a friend, right, with our skills, gifting, or expertise? But sometimes we have gifting inside of us that comes so natural that we don't even realize that it is a genius inside of us because it's so natural to us. It's an unrecognized resource. What do you do well? What do you want to do, and what would you do if nobody ever paid you to do it? You're like, I really like to organize. I like to see it organized, all the clothes here and shoes here, or the cabinet this way or pantry this way, but maybe it's something else for you. Maybe it's the way that you blend fabrics and you just have this natural inclination to understand how fabrics blend together. So maybe it's on people, maybe it's on couches, maybe it's in some other way. Maybe you have some other kind of skill. What passion do you have that maybe you pushed aside to work the 9 to 5? Now, I'm not here to tell you quit your job. That's not my business. What I am here to ask you is, maybe you're underselling your genius. Maybe that passion inside of you to see something a certain way, do something a certain way. Maybe that right there is the real thing that God meant for you to focus in on, to be able to give some more time and attention to. You know, the famed inventor, George Washington Carver, he recognized that the peanut was a resource. And so he made 300 uses from just the peanut. That's amazing, right? Right there in Tuskegee. And he had his workshop, his lab, he called it God's little workshop. And they asked him about it. They said, well, how are you doing this? What textbooks are you using? And he says, well, I don't really use textbooks. I just use an old book. And they said, what old book is that? And he said, it's the Bible. That's the only book I bring into my lab. And what happened? How did he know all this? He didn't have Google. He didn't have social media. He did not have YouTube tutorials. How did he know? Because he tapped into his creative genius that went beyond the border or boundaries of other people's natural learning. There's a creative genius inside of you that goes beyond what maybe you might have learned to do. That might go beyond just a degree to do it. Nothing wrong with degrees. I encourage you to get your degree, get educated. But don't let that be the limit of your success. There's the YouVersion Bible app. And this YouVersion Bible app has been downloaded, oh man, hundreds of millions of times. We actually had the founder, Pastor Craig Rochelle from Life Church in Oklahoma City. His church was the one who founded and started and created the YouVersion Bible app that has now been downloaded hundreds of millions of times. And he told us this story about how it started. And do you know it was actually a response to a failed original mission? As a matter of fact, they poured a lot of money and resources into trying to create this faith-based community that was kind of a social networking thing around the Bible, and it was supposed to be computer web-based, that you can access it through your desktop computer, your laptop. Failed miserably. A lot of money, a lot of time, failed. Nobody wanted it. A college intern, Sharbria, a college intern said, what if we take some of this and what we're doing, and we turn it into an app and see if people would want to use it that way. And so they thought about it and they said, okay, fine. They weren't even paying the college intern. And they said, okay, whatever, how much is it gonna cost? It'll be minimal. They said, okay, fine. If it doesn't cost much money, we'll just try it. They put it to the side. Then it started getting downloaded. 10,000 downloads. 20,000 downloads, 100,000 downloads, 1 million downloads. I think we got something here. 10 million downloads, 100 million downloads, multiple different languages, multiple different countries. Wait a minute. This started as a response to a failed mission. One of the unrecognized resources that you have is resilience. Your ability to bounce back after it didn't work out the way you thought it should. That's an unrecognized resource. Is it not? I think it is. People can be an unrecognized resource. The people around us, I just talked about that college intern. Family, friends. Sometimes you come across somebody, you meet somebody, they can be an unrecognized resource. They're willing to help you with their gifts, their time, their ability. Your environment can be an unrecognized resource. I like to think of an environment as soil. Now, if I had an apple seed and I put it right here at the podium, that apple seed will never turn into an apple tree. It will never grow roots. It won't do anything. It'll stay a seed. Even if I yell at it, scream at it, I can cry about it, it'll still stay an apple seed. But when I put it in the ground, put it in the soil, light and water and sunlight, it's going to start to grow, right? It doesn't grow absent of the right environment because the seed needs what the environment contains. Some of us are so busy trying to get to a comfortable environment that we forget it's sometimes the uncomfortableness of the environment that we're in that pushes us towards something great, that acts as the catalyst towards something that we really desire. Maybe it's that coworker that you don't like who gets on your last nerves. Come on, y'all know who I'm talking about. But they push you to be better. Maybe it's the deadlines that the supervisor has put on you. And maybe you're still working at a 9-to-5 job, and sometimes you feel like those aren't fair, but it's now pushing something out of you. It's pushing procrastination out of you, and it's pushing discipline into you. Sometimes we under-recognize, we undersell the environment's ability to pull out of us what needs to be exercised, to show us something about ourselves. Can we keep going? We're going to go to the last one. But you know what? Before I go to the last one, I got to say this. In the midst of this journey, sometimes we have bad or challenging things that happen to us, right? Now, we don't want those challenging things to happen to us, but sometimes we have bad situations. And in our minds, we have a tendency to negatively interpret these challenging situations. I want to give you an example because I think this is kind of a side note, but this really works in tandem with what we're talking about and how we think. Let's say you're in business and you're a vacuum sales person. Now, back in the day, they used to go house to house, door to door with vacuum sales. I was not alive during that time, but so I hear. Some of y'all might remember. You might have some years on me. And so they went around from door to door selling vacuums. Now, let's say you're a vacuum salesman. And let's say you get to somebody's door and they reject you hard. They close the door in your face. I don't want none of your crusty vacuums. No, thank you. For us, as we interpret those moments, sometimes we are tempted to make it one of three things. We're tempted to first make it personal. They don't want to buy from me because they don't like me. They don't like who I am or what I'm about. They don't like my background or my neighborhood. They don't like me because of my family history or the color of my skin. Sometimes we're tempted. Come on, y'all. We're tempted to make it personal. This is a personal thing. The next thing that we're tempted to do is we're tempted to negatively interpret hardship and challenges as pervasive. What do I mean pervasive? I mean, we generalize it to everything. Instead of being a single event, it's a pervasive reality that says, well, if they think that I'm incompetent, maybe all my clients think I'm incompetent. And maybe there's just no sales to be had, and maybe our products aren't very good anyway. And so now negative thinking cascades and becomes pervasive to every area of our thinking. And then the number three thing that happens that challenges us is we're tempted to make it permanent. What do I mean? If it was this way today, it's always going to be this way. It's going to be this way tomorrow, and this way next week, and this way the week after that. But I challenge you to get rid of that negative systemic thinking. I challenge you that when you have an opportunity to be rejected, you put yourself out there for this application, for this business loan. I'm talking to somebody. You put yourself out there, they say no. I challenge you, don't make it personal. Don't let it become pervasive, and don't ever think that it's permanent, because no dream can survive a person who quits. If you make it permanent, you will quit, and we'll never see your dream in this earth. And it's not just you who loses out. We miss out. Humanity misses out on the benefit of your dream, because ultimately, when your dream is fulfilled, it helps other people. It's a blessing to us. Don't hold back on what's rightfully ours. Sometimes we have a tendency to make our dream real personal, right? It's all about just me, my family, what I want to do. I want to express this, or I want to build wealth for my family, and that's good too. But God gave you that dream to help humanity, to help the community, to help your family, to help the extended family, to help others that you see, to help build back communities, to change the fabric of society. Your dream has the power to do that. But we mismanage the importance of our dream when we think it's only about us. Let's get to the last one, and I'll be done. The last one. Oh, here's the last one. Comfort zone. Comfort zone. The fourth side of the box, comfort zone. If you're writing notes, I want you to write this down. Familiar, easy, safe, secure. Familiar, easy, safe, secure. That represents the comfort zone. Jim Rohn once said this: stop wishing things were easier. Wish you were better. Man, that always hits me when I think about that. Stop wishing things were easier. Wish things were better. Now, we all want more money, more opportunities, better things. But the truth is, when I get better, it commands more resources. One of my friends said it like this: don't let your comfort zone become your kill zone, because comfort zone is where dreams go to die. It's hard to realize your dream in a comfort zone. What do I mean a comfort zone? An area that is familiar, it's easy, it's safe, it's secure. How many stories have we heard about people who started their own businesses, and one day they were faced with the decision of having to quit their job and go all in on this business? Why were they faced with the decision? Because you will only get out of it what you put into it. You can't get all in results being halfway in. You gotta be all in. Me and my wife were shopping for couches recently, and we're in the midst of building a new house. And you know, as a lot of times when you build something new, a new house, or you have a new building or something, a lot of times you got to get new furniture. Sometimes the old house furniture doesn't quite suit the new house, or so I'm told. As a man, I say, but baby, I think it'll work. We can make this work. She said, no, that's not how it works, Dave. I said, okay. So we're out shopping for couches. Now, one of the criteria for shopping for couches, come on, help me, ladies, is it's got to be comfortable. Who wants an uncomfortable couch, right? Not me. Now, I'm not talking about that room that nobody sits in. I'm not talking about the room with the white furniture that, you protect and you don't let any of the kids in there. I'm not talking about that room. I'm talking about the TV room, the room that you sit in that couch. It's got to be comfortable. So the more comfortable it is, I noticed something. The more comfortable it is, the more you don't want to leave. The litmus test for the comfort is how long am I willing to sit here? How much do I not want to get up? I could sit in this couch for a long time, right? That's what comfort zones are designed to do. Comfort zones are just like couches. They're there to capture your attention and make you settle right there. Because it feels so good. Because it's familiar. Because it's easy. It's safe. It's secure. Job security is wonderful. Hey, I get a paycheck. I understand. It's wonderful. It can be a fearful thing to step out as an entrepreneur, to step out on your dream, to try, to take a risk. But inside of the comfort zone, it's rare that growth happens. Growth only happens at the level that we want it to happen outside of the comfort zone. Growth and comfort cannot coexist. Rarely can they coexist. We're talking about getting outside of the comfort zone. I'll tell you this story. So growing up, I did not like English class. Some of you all might be English class fans, reading fans. That was not me. I did not like to read. I did not like English class. The part I hated the most was editing when we wrote a paper, typed a paper. I hated the editing process. Do I have any editors in here? Any editors? Okay. All right. Shout out to y'all. I did not like it. You all are gifted, skilled people. I just didn't like it, and I didn't feel like I was good at it. So here's how this works. So I didn't like it. I got good grades, though. I applied myself, but I was like, okay, once I was done with school, I was like, cool. All the reading from now on is all of my own volition. It's all optional, right? But years later, I discovered something. In 2020, God put an opportunity for me and my wife to write a book. And it wouldn't be her first book, but it would be my first book. And I was come face to face with that insecurity, with that fear of not doing well in English class. Because what started happening is I started having the thought, maybe I didn't do well because I'm not a good writer, not a good editor. This is not what I'm good at. And if I had obeyed that narrative, I wouldn't have written. I wouldn't have stepped out. I wouldn't have tried. And the publishing company that approached us wanted us to do something that was not on our radar. It was actually a young men's boys devotional. And it was 100 devotions, 5-minute devotions for young men. And so I had to come face to face with that reality and say, wait a minute. Like if God is setting this opportunity in front of me, and I know in my lifetime I'm supposed to write books, I can't stay comfortable and do what I know God has asked me to do. I'm going to have to step out and get uncomfortable. I'm going to have to grow in my ability to write, to edit, to do the hard things. My challenge to you today is, what hard thing have you been running from? The hard thing that maybe you don't want to do. Maybe it's the business plan. Maybe it's financial literacy and financial planning. Maybe it's reaching out to different investors because maybe you feel like you don't have a good business pitch. Or maybe somebody might be hung up on the way you talk. You say, well, you know what? I only have a high school, degree and I don't really talk that good. Who cares? So what? Because when you put your dream out there, it resonates in the atmosphere. And it's going to pull in the resources and attention of the people who are supposed to be involved with it. And so we did it, and it was hard for me. I wrote it, and we edited it, and we worked with, publisher and the editors. But it was difficult, but it caused me to grow. And 20,000 books sold later, after maybe a year and a half, we sold about 20,000 books or so. I see, wow, God really had an assignment for this. And then he encouraged me to start writing my next book that'll come out next year. And it just continues to snowball. But what I'm here to tell you is you cannot reach your dream sitting on the couch of the comfort zone. You're going to have to step out. Somebody say step out. How do you do that? Vision. Vision. Vision is one of the strongest forces on earth. A strong vision will help you to escape comfort zones. A vision is seeing conditions that don't currently exist but are real and true to you in your heart. What is the vision that you have in your heart about that business? Maybe it's not just the vision to start it. Maybe you started it, but maybe the vision now needs to adjust so you can grow it, so you can scale it. I talked about when I started, maybe for some of you all, you just want to kind of start something that's nice here in the community, but maybe God is saying, no, multinational. And you know in your heart that this resonates because it's supposed to be bigger than maybe what you've tried to make it. Maybe you've tried to step back because you don't want to be ridiculed, right? We don't want to be laughed at. We don't want to have to defend our dreams to anybody. And I'm not telling you to share your dream with everybody. But what I am telling you is don't shrink back. Don't give up. Don't get comfortable. Don't fear what you don't have. Don't be concerned about who you aren't. The degree or the experience that you don't have, the connections that you may not have, the resources that may be lacking. Just focus on the vision. A strong vision will help you escape comfort zones. Enduring something that's hard always becomes easier when you know why you're doing it. Vision is the source of discipline. Vision will keep you going. It will start to fuel that discipline because it's our everyday things that will get us to our goals, help us achieve and accomplish our dreams. Discipline is so important. Discipline is the bridge between what you want and what you actually achieve. Discipline. But we got to have vision. Fear of failing, inferiority complex, unrecognized resources, and comfort zone. If we can master all of those, we can step outside of the box. You can see your dream realized in this earth. You can do things that are greater than you ever thought possible. You're going to do something that maybe nobody in your family has ever done. I love when students say that. They say to me, I want to do this. And I say, okay, great. Do you know anybody who's ever done it? They say, no. I say, perfect. You're going to be the first. And now you're going to be a part of somebody else's story because they're going to look to your story for inspiration. You're going to be the one to get outside of the box, to manifest your dream. As I close, I want to encourage you with this. If you get better, things will get better. You are the holder of your destiny, and no man can stop you from reaching your destiny but you. I want to encourage you with something else I also have. In 2020, I told you about it that I developed something called the Winston Leadership Institute to train people on how to have competence and how to have confidence. I noticed a couple things that were lacking, especially in people who were of a younger generation or maybe first-time leaders, first-generation leaders. They lacked confidence, number one, and competence, number two. But how many of you all have ever taken a test in life that you studied real hard for? You're always more confident when you walk into the classroom when you know you've studied. When you're competent, it leads to confidence. And that's part of my assignment, is to help leaders get equipped with competence so they can be confident. And so I developed a 12-week online course called the Winston Leadership Institute that's on demand. I encourage you to check it out if that's something that you could benefit from. If you're looking to take your leadership to the next level and you need more of what I was talking about today, I want you to check it out, winstonleadershipinstitute.com. And I really believe that it'll help you, it'll benefit you, it'll bless you, and it will encourage you to go to the next level. Maybe you feel like you're stagnant. You're like, how do I get to the next level? Ta-da! And that's why I developed it. I'm David Winston. Thank you so much for your time. God bless you.
All right, give him a hand. Pastor David Winston. He did an amazing job. I told you guys to stay. He dropped some nuggets. Now, do you guys have any questions? Are there any questions for him? Okay. I'm going to let Lewis do this part. Oh, okay. He's coming around with the other mic.
Hi, Pastor David. My name is Ashley, and I am so elated to be here to benefit from so many nuggets of wisdom that you dropped. I've had the privilege to be able to hear you speak on numerous occasions at the Go Hard Freedom Youth Conference, so I'm a huge supporter of your ministry. The question that I have for you is I'm also involved in youth ministry, so I'll make it real brief. So I had launched a nonprofit organization in 2018 for girls here my community in Gary. And recently, at the beginning of this year, God told me to go to grad school, and I was like, "Ha, no, you're kidding," because no, I'm done with school. And he told me to go back to school. So now I'm a graduate student. I'm studying nonprofit management. So I'm still trying to run things and still go to school. And God told me to have several seats back in September and to just focus on school. So now, next year when I finish, my plan is to relaunch. So I was listening very intently. I know you have obviously a boatload of experience with youth ministry and leadership. What nuggets can you provide for me specifically that deal with building a youth organization from like the ground up? Because this is not attached to a church. This is a whole separate organization because I want to reach the girls that are unchurched.
Absolutely.
That's the plan. So okay. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for your heart for our next generation. We need it. And our young people, we need all the help that we can get to be able to build them up. The first thing I would say is start with why. Always keep the why front and center of what you're doing. And when I say that, I also want you to boil it down to something that you can restate to somebody else in 15 seconds or less. Because I know sometimes, we have a lot of things in our heart, right? We want to, and it could be a business plan, it could be, vision statement and mission statement, and then you have tenets of it and all of that. Boil it down to 15 seconds or less. Because you're going to be able to recite it and need to recite it easily and quickly to any and everybody who would ask about it. I say that very specifically because I believe, whenever we're building youth organizations, of course, it's upon your shoulders as the organization founder, but other people are going to need to buy into your vision. You're not going to be able to do it alone, right? And neither do you probably want to. You're going to have teams of people, whether staff somewhere in the future or volunteers, maybe community partners, business partners, and other organizational partners. And that leading with why is going to be extremely crucial, because when they ask you and they say, why do you want to do this? Tell us about your organization. You want to quickly be able to say, this is exactly why I'm doing it. And that'll resonate with the people that it's supposed to resonate with. And here's the part I want you to remember. It won't resonate with the people that it's not supposed to resonate with. Sometimes we can get so hung up on the people who said no or didn't call us back or didn't return the favor or whatever that we start to question, was this good enough? So I say start with why. Number two, and I kind of mentioned it, community partners I think are really, really key when we're growing youth organizations, especially like independent youth organizations. And I can go on with that for a long time, but I think it's really important to build those relationships with community partners who have a very similar why. Why do we want to do it, and exactly what are we trying to fix? What is the solve? There's so many things that our youth are faced with. What is the one thing that we're trying to help rectify, the one problem that we're trying to solve for? And then last but not least, and I know you know this because you work with youth need to know that you care, that you're just there for them and that you care. I think there should never be anybody on a team who is working in a youth organization who isn't already deeply concerned or committed to the well-being of youth. Because you need people who are passionate about doing it, not just people who are skilled or available, but people who share that same passion, because they'll work harder, longer, they'll be stronger, and they'll go the extra mile. And they'll often access creativity and innovation that you didn't even have to ask them to reach, because their passion helps them reach it. So I can go on, but I think those things can help you get started. Yeah, absolutely. And when I say community partners, I also mean church ministry partners as well.
Any more questions? There's one.
All right, first of all, I'm going to make this quick because I am long-winded. I'm a teacher, so I tend to talk a lot. However, first of all, this is my first time hearing you speak. I know your dad. I've seen him on television. Well, I don't know him personally, but I followed him on television for years. I was observing the way that you were speaking on stage. For someone that was once extroverted, introverted, I'm sorry. Well, I'm extroverted, so a lot of people assume that I do not have a fear of speaking. I do, and so I'm currently taking a speaking course in college, and I'm monitoring you, and I'm like, he opened up, he captured our attention. It looks like a natural flow, and so for someone that was once introverted that now can just capture us on the stage like that, like how did you overcome that fear?
Sure. So there's several things that come to mind. I'll just kind of rattle them off, connected or non-connected. I think the first thing I had to do is I had to, and I don't mean this in an irresponsible way, I had to divorce myself from other people's opinions or validations of me. That I'm here to give you exactly what I feel like has been impressed upon my heart to give you today according to what the Shines have asked me to do and what the assignment is. And I'm responsible for serving it to you in a way that's palatable. I think we can all agree that's what good speakers do, right? And ministers do. I am not responsible for what you do with it. And your validation or lack of validation does not tell me that I did a bad job. Not that I'm trying to be arrogant or anything like that. I try to be a very humble person, and I'm always learning, right? We never arrive. I think that's one of the things. We never arrive. We're always learning, always learning. But I think the fear of other people's opinions, their validation or lack of, can often serve as a way to keep us away from the stage. How did they receive me? And I used to ask that question all the time, like, how did they receive? How did they receive? And I started to change that question. And I asked myself, how did I deliver? How did I deliver it? Did I deliver it with integrity? Was I responsible for the assignment that I was given? Was I irresponsible in any way? Was I prepared? Did I know my material? Did I take time? Did I make the PowerPoint? Okay, if I've done everything that I need to do as a farmer to sow seed, my job is not the ground's job. My job is to put the seed in the ground. The ground's job is to grow the seed. If I was responsible to wake up early, get my seeds ready, go out there, till the ground, and then plant the seed, I've done my job. And I had to become free from other people's opinions. Second of all, I had to work on my craft, right? And so, a lot of times with public speaking, as you know, you're taking a course with it, there's different things that come along with it, an expertise that comes along with it. I'll give you one example. So there's something in our human psyche, this probably goes back to the caveman days, where, cavemen had like rocks and spears and stuff like that and sharp things. And so there's something in our psyche that when we see people and we can't see their hands or their hands are balled up, it actually can make us tense about what they're presenting to us because we don't know if they're going to do us harm. We consciously know you don't have a weapon, but I can't see Lewis's hands. I don't know. But there's something disarming psychologically and subconsciously about this. Hey, you can see my hand. I'm smiling, but you can see my hands, right? So I have no ill intent with you. There's certain psychological things that you can do as a public speaker that open people up to what you have to present. And then I think, third of all, I think you have to be also confident in what you're presenting, right? And I think that goes back to not the audience, it goes back to you. Whether you're introverted or extroverted, being confident in what you're presenting, the message that you're trying to relay, knowing that, hey, I'm here to do you some good. It's me. I'm here to deliver a good message to you. It took me a while to get to a comfortable flow, if I can just be transparent. It took me probably about 5 or 6 years to find my flow outside of being intimidated by my father. Because he has his own style, his own flow. And so there was a level of intimidation. Maybe I have to be like that. Maybe I can't be like that. Maybe I'm trying to be like that and I'll never be like that. Had to get rid of that, right? I had to let myself go from unreal expectations. Maybe I might be able to mimic him a little bit and, do a little laugh or something. Maybe I kind of look like him. But at the end of the day, I'll never be him. I'll never be him. We have some of the same DNA, but I'll never be him. But God doesn't want me to. He wants me to be me. And that left me being comfortable in my own skin. There's many logistic things I'm sure we can talk about, but those are some things that have helped me. I'm sure you're doing a great job, and you're on the way because you're courageous enough to ask that question. Yeah, thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Yes.
Hello, Pastor. My name is Anthony Jarrett. I am a member of Living Word. I know your dad. Probably, I don't know if you remember me. As I was listening to you, you spoke very well. I'm so happy and blessed to be here. When I was listening to you, the questions that arise was, for me, I've always been told you need to write it down, or I'll so quickly pull out my phone and make a note in there, but it seems to be something different when you write it down on paper. And I'm here because I'm an entrepreneur. I have a business selling cookies, and I want to take it to the next level. Mm-hmm. It's been under the table, but now I'm at the point where I want to make it the real thing, the real deal, and let's go. But what I need to know now is when it comes to vision, like you said, sell the vision, sell the story, get the people involved, that's my biggest thing. So my question is, did you write it down on paper and then didn't think about it no more? Or what was your process in getting what you wanted, doing what you were doing and putting it on paper and the steps of, because I understand being a believer that I'm supposed to tell it to God, but it's not my job to understand how it's going to happen. I just need to get it out there. I need to write it down, but I've never been the person to write the stuff down. So now I feel like my challenge is writing your vision, putting it all together so that the Lord can direct my steps to get it to where he wants me to be. Absolutely.
Great question. Thank you so much. And I'm sure you're probably familiar with the scripture, write the vision and make it plain. So I'm going to make a statement, and I certainly don't mean to be insensitive towards you and your process, kind of how you like to do things, and I'm not trying to trivialize doing things other ways. But I'm going to make a statement. I just want you to receive it. It's not real until you write it. That's been something that's real for me. That's my truth. It's not real until you write it. Something happens in our minds when we write it down. I often think that we also give God permission, and there's a built-in level of accountability because we wrote it. You write it down in pen, write it somewhere, whatever, put it up somewhere. I mean, that's kind of the double whammy, right? Write it down and then put it up. But what happens in our minds is, I think there's something spiritual that happens, but also there's something natural that happens. And there's something in our minds called the reticular activation system, or the RAS. And this reticular activation system, it's responsible for motivation in our lives. But what happens is, I believe that as we write the vision and make it plain, and as we see that thing over and over, the reticular activation system works in this way. Have you ever wanted a certain kind or brand of car? Maybe you see something, oh, that's new, that's really nice, I like that. I've had it happen in my own life. And you really like it, and once that thing gets input into the mental system, you might have not noticed the car on the road before. You just said it, you see it everywhere. Now, why do you do that? Why do you see it everywhere now? It was there all along, but why now do I see it everywhere? Because I've decided to make it significant to my conscious and my subconscious. When we write the vision down, we decide to make it significant. And I believe it heightens our sensitivity and awareness with the help of the Lord to everything in our environment that can make what we wrote down a reality. And it's just that simple. I know there's more that goes into that, but I think it's really important. And I think you already know, writing it down is really important. I've wrote down many different things. I shared about being an author, something I didn't share, and then I'll end this answer. 5 or 6 years ago, I was in a different country. I think I was in South Africa. And I was getting ready to minister on that Sunday morning. And the Lord stopped me and said, I want you to write something. I want you to declare something over your life. I said, okay, well, no problem. I mean, this happens from time to time. But there was something special about that moment. So I wrote it down, and literally on the inside of my Bible, it's still a yellow sticky. It's kind of tattered and a little frayed and dirty now because it's been in there for about 6 years. But I wrote it down on a sticky note. And he said, I want you to say this every day until I tell you to stop. So for every day I've been saying it. And I'll tell you what that sticky note says. I am a gifted author, speaker, and communicator of the gospel and of wisdom. Lord, you are using me to lead revival in this nation and in this generation. I'm a world-renowned leader and a next-generation general of faith. I had to say it and write it before I felt like it was true. I would write it and say it and then feel like a fraud. Because I said, that's not true. I ain't wrote nothing. I haven't published anything. I didn't know if I felt like an amazing speaker, and maybe that goes back to that other answer. But there was something significant about writing that vision, and then for me, for that scenario, about repeating it over and over again. Hopefully that can encourage you. I'll say this. A lot of times we are fearful and tempted not to write it down because we have an issue being accountable to ourselves if it doesn't happen. Can we just be real? Let's just be real. What if this doesn't happen? Do I look like a fool or feel like a fraud? Because what I wrote didn't happen. But I started to look at the other side. If I don't write it, maybe it can never happen. We're just going to leave the rest up to God. If he tells me to write it, right? Thank you, Anthony. Thank you all.
Give him a hand, Pastor David Winston. Thank you so much.
Thank you.